Hey guys and gals, Bobby Medina here, and bringing you a really cool interview today with my good friend Mark Zauss. You know, you might know him. He's the lead trumpet player at the Disney World Main Street Philharmonic. He's played with a number of different artists, Arturo Sandoval, Frankie Valli, Maureen McGovern, James Moody, Branford Marsalis, all kind of people. Super sought after trumpet player and all around nice guy. And in addition to that, one of the things that makes Mark truly special is that he is a double board certified clinical psychotherapist. And, so he's here today to share a little bit of his knowledge and friendship with everybody. So we hope you guys will all get something good out of this. So thank you for being here today, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate you having me on the show again. It's wonderful. Or interview, that is. But
well, I was just thinking, because you're in this, this psychology area, I mean, you've probably seen a lot of things from different people, from different fields, but I was just kind of, to get this whole thing started, I'm just kind of wondering what you've seen with people, and maybe even personally for yourself, because we all have our own challenges. But I'm just talking about like challenges that performance artists face, and when I say that primarily, I'm talking about stage fright. People often get concerned when we're going to go play a big show, and I know you can practice and prepare your parts and all that stuff, but sometimes in your mind, things creep in and you get worried. Am I gonna screw something up? Am I gonna fold here under pressure? Blah blah blah. So what kind of things can you tell us about that?
well, that's a great question, and it is a sought after topic. People who do struggle with performance anxiety, they don't know what to do, or they're very concerned or afraid when they're thinking about it. And then when you have a performance coming up and you think about it and you start to get nervous, it's called pre-anticipatory anxiety. And one of the ways to deal with that is just not try to fight it, but try to deal with it. So there's a psychological pattern that occurs with stage fright. So before you get nervous, before you get to the performance, you want to start breathing. You want to change something and do something different than you did before. So if you did the same sort of anxiety provoking behavior, then you'll still get anxiety ridden from that. In other words, if you do the same thing you always got, you'll get the same thing you always get. So what an important thing to do is to start a deep breathing thing. So first thing you do is take a deep breath and then let it out. You want to breathe like an opera singer, just, and then that oxygenates the frontal lobe of the brain. In other words, it kind of clears out some of the neurotransmitters there so that the activity in the frontal lobe slows down. And that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from, is the frontal lobe. Then when you're backstage and you're about to go out on do the performance, you want to do a different activity than you did before, rather than just sit there and be anxious. You want to use this breathing technique. So you would breathe in through the nose for 8 seconds. You want to count the 8 seconds. The counting is an important part of it. So it's breathe in through the nose for 8 seconds. Hold your breath for 4 seconds, then exhale through the mouth for 8 seconds. Then you rest for a couple seconds. And then you want to repeat this about 4 or 5 times. As you're doing this, you're going to feel your mind clear and your shoulders drop down and a general decrease in anxiety. The first time you breathe in, you're going to feel your heart pounding. You're actually going to get a little bit more nervous during that 4 counts where you're holding your breath. That goes away pretty quickly. What that does is kind of soothe the frontal lobe, makes those neurotransmitters slow down, so that when you do perform, you're more calm and able to be more in the moment. So when we're at our best, or what you call the zone, is when we're the most relaxed, is when we're not thinking about what we're doing. It's like an automatic motion. Like when you're driving a stick shift of a car, when you first learn to drive the stick shift, you're grinding the gears, you're jerking around, and after about a month, you're drinking a Coke and talking on the phone at the same time. Maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I get it. Wow. That's interesting, and it's interesting that, I mean, like I've done some yoga and I've studied breathing and different types of techniques, but to hear how it affects parts of your brain is interesting, physically, the physiology of it. So I'm just curious, I mean, do you have times when you personally face any kind of stage fright or performance anxiety?
Well, I used to a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm performing and it's a new situation, I'll get a little bit of an anxiety for a few minutes and I'll do this breathing technique and it seems to go away pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, if anybody gets into a change of pattern or a new situation, which happens to musicians quite a lot, they have a gig and it's in a new location just about every time. And we're playing with a different set of musicians. Sometimes we know them, sometimes we don't. We might have this thought in our head that, wow, I wonder if that guy thinks I'm any good, or if I hope he thinks I'm good, or I hope I do a good enough job. I hope I don't mess up. Those thoughts can be intrusive. And then after you play, oh, I should have practiced more. I should have nailed that. I can do better than that. Those thoughts are called, this is going to sound strange, this word, it's called masturbation. And it's M-U-S-T-E-R-B-A-T-I-O-N, not another word. And it means shoulds and oughts. It means you're kind of beating yourself up. Those are the thoughts you need to challenge. You are doing a good enough job. You are prepared for this, and you're not messing up as bad as you think you are. And the other people who are around you, and the people in the audience too. So this is one of the things I use to deal with it, the anxiety. So this is another good question you asked here, that when I do start to feel anxious, you think about the audience. What is it they're focusing on? Well, they're focusing on their basic needs. Their basic needs are, have I gone to the bathroom? Did I eat enough food? Is there gas in my car? What do I have to do after this? And they're really attending the concert, or they're attending the performance, or even being in the orchestra with you, so they can get away from their everyday life. They want to escape. So they kind of already like you.
Right. And that's a great point. Many years ago when I was in high school, I played with this little polka band when I was a kid. It was like one of my first professional playing situations. We were always out playing dances and parties and things like that. It was a really popular group down in Southern California. And I would get a little nervous, and the leader one day took me aside on a break, and he put his arm around me. He was having a beer, big Polish guy, and he says, "What are you nervous about?" And I said, "Well, I might screw up. I might forget my part, this and that. I'm new to the band and this and that." He says, "There's one thing you have to remember," and this has always stood with me in my mind all the time for all these years. He said, "People are here because they like you. They like what we're doing. They want to have a good time, and they're rooting for you. They're not out to cut you down, Facebook can be a little different, I know, sometimes for people, but the reality is that people that are coming out, you're right, they're there to have a good experience, and they're with you in a positive way.
Yeah, they want to smile and have fun with you. That's why they're there.
Right. Well, that's some great advice. I saw that you had posted a little bit on our page about this breathing technique, and I've been trying it at night before I go to bed just to see if I can sleep a little better and this and that. So it seems to definitely have a positive effect. When I get back to gigging, we'll see how that works. So that's cool. So I'm just curious too about it. Some other thoughts and ideas have come up on in this group, and one of them has talked about people's teeth shifting, things changing as we age as humans. We enter different stages of our life, and I'm just curious: have you had any issues ever with your teeth or anything that have affected your playing to a point where you've had to make maybe some kind of adjustments to it?
Well, I had a really minor, that's a good question. There's a lot of people, they're struggling with issues with their teeth. Some have surgery done. Some have new posts put in, and their total structure is changed. But for me, to answer your question, I had to do a change in my mouthpiece in the size of it. It was from an 8SV to a 9. It wasn't a very big change, but there was some shift that took place in my mouth. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe some teeth moved around. So we're talking a really small amount of movement, but it still required a mouthpiece change.
So was that a little wider than that you were going?
Smaller. It was
narrower. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just how it worked for me. Some people go smaller, or some people go wider, and I just happened to go smaller. I was my wife plays trumpet. She's in French horn, and she's excellent. So she heard me playing, and she goes, she's very nice about it. But she says, I think you sound different than you did. And it sounds like you're having trouble hitting those notes. I said, yeah, I am. I wonder what that is. Do you want to maybe try a different mouth? She knew right away what it was. So I went to Warburton, and they picked they kind of knew what was going on. I don't know how, but try this 9, and it worked great. I tried a 9, probably 20 years ago. I couldn't get it to work at all. And now I was just ready to go to a smaller thing. So I think sometimes our teeth might shift inward or outward, or flatten out more. In my case, they shifted inward, and it requires a different setup for the aperture, which requires a different mouthpiece, different rim size sometimes.
Yeah, many years ago, Bobby Shue had told me, his thing was, you should try to play the narrowest rim, you can, so that I guess not as much of the meat of the mouth of your lip is needs to be involved in the mouthpiece. I could never play something as narrow as he played at that time, but I did scale it down, and since then I've scaled it down more. But fairly recently, I switched from a Bob Reeves 42 rim to a rim that's kind of rare, but it's a 42.5, and it's just got just a tiny bit more space in there. But for me, it makes a huge difference, And I know a lot of other people in this group have been asking about this because they've had some of these issues. So, trumpet playing is really personal to each person, the body size, the type of music you're playing, what kind of sound you're hearing in your head, whether you're playing lead, whether you're playing legit, or whether you're playing jazz, or whatever the case may be. All of those require a different kind of setup. And, so you're probably right. Some people may want to try something a little bit wider, maybe a little bit narrower, just to see, Yeah,
and something I've been noticing a lot, I get a lot of students that have not played in a while, and they're returning to it recently because they have more time in their hands because they're confined anyway. So I'm getting messages, haven't played in 15 years. Can you help me play? I'm having a little bit of trouble with range. And the most common thing I'm seeing is their mouthpiece is too high. They're setting it too high. There's too much top lip in it. And so I have it bring it down, and they're getting some significant results. It's starting to help them, their range come back to what they remember from before.
Now, why do you think that is? Because I know I tend to play more upper lip, and I remember that's just my natural placement. But I've seen, I've seen all the embouchure pictures of great players, and some of them are 50-50s. Like Harry James played way up. I mean, some guys play way down. So it's kind of hard. But what's your theory behind bringing it down?
That's a good question. I think it's the teeth structure, but I'm not sure completely, because I've seen some teeth structures which I would assume that the mouthpiece would need to be lower, and it wasn't. It needed to be higher. So it really is just finding out where that is for you. The best way I could find to figure out where the mouthpiece is supposed to go is by lip buzzing with mouthpiece buzzing, just buzzing the mouthpiece, trying to play a steady tone and getting that steady sound. The mouthpiece just seems to find its way where it's supposed to go.
So when you've had to help somebody through an embouchure change, or maybe you've gone through an embouchure change, I'm not sure. It seems like all of us have gone through some kind of a shift at some point in probably more early on in our careers. But when you guide somebody through an embouchure change and they're having a hard time playing at the first, how do you get them from point A to point B and make it smooth and keep their head together for them at the same time?
Well, very seldom do they need a mirror. So the way to keep them kind of in line with that, so it's something, first thing to do is establish something consistent. So they're setting up in the same way, they're warming up the same way every day. And again, the best way I could find to have them warm up is this mouthpiece buzzing as soft as they can in the mouthpiece, and produce a tone. And this takes about 3 or 4 minutes sometimes. So the first couple moments that they try to play, the tone is very uneven. It's or they even lose the sound. So, okay, stop, rest, try it again. They keep resetting. Within about 2 or 3 minutes, they're getting that tone out, which is a nice pure tone, like a dial tone on a phone. If the younger people probably don't remember what that sounds like, but a real smooth tone. And within a few minutes, you can see their mouthpiece position has changed, but they're getting that tone out. So that tells me, well, that's probably where it's supposed to be. There are some that have been playing almost upstream, and then they go. I saw there's a guy in town. He's an excellent trumpet player, but I've seen him play kind of upstream and him shift to one side and almost point down. And the guy sounded great from both embouchures, but he sounds even better now when he switched that around. So I've seen that large of a change.
Yeah, Jimmy Stamp gave you some advice many, many years ago. And the story was interesting. He had a student that was playing lead with Stan Kenton way back then, and they were in Vegas, and his student was having some serious problems on the road, and he called Jimmy and he said, "Hey, I'm off on Thursday. I really need to book some time and come and see you." And Jimmy said, "Well, let's just do it over the phone. Let me hear you buzz your mouthpiece." So he said the guy was able to buzz his mouthpiece, and everything sounded fine, but when he went to play, it still fell apart. So he insisted to come down, and he booked 2 hours or 3 hours with him, drove down to Jimmy's house, and Jimmy, first thing he said, "Play the mouthpiece," and mouthpiece was fine. "Play the horn." He was starting to fall apart again, and Jimmy said, "I couldn't figure it out." So he said, I asked him, I said, "Have there been any changes on the bandstand in the Kenton band?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Stan just got new music stands, and he got the short ones for the trumpet. So he says he wants our bells out, but I'm looking down at the music." So he kind of was doing like this upstream thing. And Jimmy said at that point, he said that at that moment, I realized that the angle that you play at should be the angle in which you buzz, you know? And so the remedy for this guy got everything going, got his horn back down to his normal playing thing, angle, and he was fine. So Jimmy's had him, I think he went to Bob Reeves and had him bend his mouthpiece, and that solved the problem.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect. It's either that or get a dizzy bell. And
yeah, there you go. You got that too. Well, I have seen some guys play, just like you were saying, it's very rare, but I have seen some guys that kind of maybe play down, and then when they play high, they play up. They do the opposite. They really force their jaw. You seem, when I've seen you play, you seem to play down a little bit, angled slightly down, right?
Yes, I do. And I've seen guys do that too. There was a guy, Bill Spano, in town. He was I love the way he played lead, but his lead pipe would touch his nose.
Oh, really?
But he played wonderfully, but that's
wow. That is like really upstream.
Way up in the air. But yes, I point down when I play. I used to shift much more. Now the shift is a lot less. I've tried to diminish it.
Do you do anything with your jaw? Because I know a lot of people are really into keeping your teeth lined up or moving your jaw forward. Some people talk about the floating jaw. Some people just say, just relax your jaw. How do you feel? Or do you, I don't even think, don't try not to think about too many things, but is that something that has affected you and your thinking, your way of playing?
A little bit. And here's how, that's another good point. When I would play, I tried to focus on keeping my setup exactly the same as the day before. And I noticed that when I get tired, things get inflamed a little bit. And it's just how it would go. If you're playing so many shows, it's going to get inflamed.
Right.
So I can't use a different embouchure. This is just how it goes. So I still use the same embouchure, but I keep the space between my lips wider. So I'll take the mouthpiece and kind of just open it up a little bit. I use my tongue to keep the lips apart. The distance between the two lips is about the same because there's more swelling. The lips are more swelled up, more swollen. But there's still about the same amount of lip inside the rim. I just have to keep the aperture more open to compensate for the swelling. And that's about it for that.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I know that, you've talked a lot about, really keeping your airstream super steady and really focusing down to where you can play really, really soft. And so this soft thing, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what's the whole point of this? Like, explain how you sort of warm up, or how you do what I call damage control. I mean, you're playing at Disneyland like sets and sets and sets all day long. So, and you're playing some really hard stuff. And you told me once that, you had to, between each set, you basically had to come back down and get everything back together, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. So there's two parts of this answer. First part, the damage control part. This would require to warm up the same way every day. So you train your body, you remind your body, you teach it every day. This is what it feels like to play relaxed. There's where the soft playing ends starts. So I would do the Jimmy Stamp method every day and start out with the mouthpiece buzzing. And I found better results for me when I did it softly, the lip buzzing softly, than the da, and I do 3 pages of that, descending page, which is
so now you're talking about lip buzzing that, or mouthpiece, or just playing it on the horn?
Right, good question. It's first is lip buzzing, and then playing it on the horn. The other 3 pages, the first 3 pages of the book. And
so when you lip buzz, what are you lip buzzing then?
I'm lip buzzing either what Jimmy Stamp said to lip buzz, which was the da, or the first page. Okay. Most of the time I've been doing the first page, which is da. I'm lip buzzing that. And then I play down on the trumpet, and the next page on the trumpet, and the third page on the trumpet, and I'm done. And I seem to get better results when I rested as long as I played each one, as I talked about before, and then played it soft. Then between shows, I'll do this exercise that Wynton Marsalis taught us at a clinic that I was at. And I was one of about 80 people in the clinic, and this was when I was 16 years old. I'm sure he doesn't remember I was there, or, it was just some young guy. And he said to play a low C as soft as you can, hold it out, and play it almost so softly that you run out of air. And so I did that, and I tried that when I had to go play these shows at Future Core. There were 7 shows there in the afternoon, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, and then 1, 2, and 3 were the sets. And then I had to play in a Dixieland club called Rosie O'Grady's at night. Rosie O'Grady's show was much harder than the Future Core. It was like playing second in the circuit, suicide second, and your hamburger. So I needed to get through this day. So I had to figure out a way to do it so I wouldn't play badly at night and get replaced. So basically, after each show and before each show, I would do long tones out by this dumpster in the back as a place I could go. And I would do that exercise. C as long as you can, then a B, and then a B flat, and an A, and then A flat, and then G. I'd hold on each note as long as I could with as steady air as I could. And by about A or A flat, it started to get more even. And the other part of this, if we have time, do I have time to?
We're getting close here,
okay.
But go ahead, get to the other point. If you can make it quick, that'd be great.
Yeah, the other point is it prevents embouchure fatigue syndrome if you relax a lot. If you do get embouchure fatigue syndrome, you get a lot of pain in your face. You can go online and get TMJ exercises. And if you're going like this to your face and you feel an immense amount of pain right here by the trigeminal nerve, you want to get assessed by a dentist for teeth grinding, see if you need a mouth guard, or just by doing like this, you might have some tenseness. Even if you don't grind your teeth, you could still have this. So you want to just see if you have any pressure points there that hurt, and try to kind of massage those out to keep all the muscles loose in your face. So that's the basic gist of that.
Wow, that's some great advice. Yeah, I remember I had some molar pain one time, and I had been playing an immense amount of hours, and I went to my dentist, and he had talked about that and these muscles and all that stuff. He said, I think it's from your playing. It's not a tooth problem. Your teeth look fine, So, we got some really strong muscles going on there. So, well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your info and your time with us. I really, really appreciate it. I could talk to you all day. Unfortunately, I don't have all that time on this call, and I know you're busy too. But if people want to find out how to get a hold of you, I mean, obviously you're in our group on Facebook, Mark Zauss, and then they can go over to your website. I know because you teach lessons privately, you help people as a clinical psychotherapist and all that stuff. So if people want to find you, where do they go?
Best way is on the website, which is MarkZauss, 2 S's as in Sam.com or .net. Both go to my website. And there's a lesson thing. There's also a lot of information under the practice tab where you can find out about the Crusoe method and more practice information. A warm up I wrote out and different things like that.
Very cool. Yeah, and they got some, you even have some free stuff that they can download. So that's really cool. So guys, if you want to check that out, go see markzauss.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you online. And we always enjoy your comments in our group. So thanks so much, Mark, for taking the time. Really appreciate seeing you again, and we'll look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Bobby. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
You too. Have a good one.